Hello and welcome to my Restoration Druid healing video for Mythic Plus and small dungeon content. We're not talking about raid healing today because I've already talked about that, and they are very different forms of content. So, to start off, we'll talk about our dungeon build, and what we're going to do is, if you just copy this, you'll be in pretty good shape. There's a few things that you can move here or there, but you want to make sure you have, some cash form abilities, as well as some sort of CC, like an AoE CC. I'm a huge fan of Incapacitating Roar because you can basically walk up to a group of stuff, fire that off, and interrupt everything in the area real quick, and it works great. You don't have to target anything and do a stun on them, which tends to be more work, plus it, turns you into bear form that you get stuck in, and let's just do Incapacitating Roar. It also turns you into a bear, but let's be honest, just not having to target things is way easier. The other thing here, Ursul's Vortex or Mass Entanglement both have their uses. I just prefer Ursul's Vortex because I can keep things kind of in one spot even if they take damage. And in Mass Entanglement, it basically breaks whenever people start hitting with AoEs, so I prefer Ursul's Vortex for that reason. Make sure you have Innervate and Nature's Vigil, also both very useful. And Improved Sunfire is going to be huge because you can basically do one cast and put Sunfire on a group of things, which you'll be fighting mostly groups when it comes to trash in these dungeons. Now, as far as the Restoration Druid side goes, this changes a little bit from the raid healing. There's a few things specifically that change. Improved Wild Growth you're not going to need because you only have 5 people, so you're going to get Wild Growth on everybody just about every time anyway. You're going to want to make sure you get Adaptive Swarm because it's going to be basically free healing and DPS without you having to really worry about it. And then you'll want to make sure you got Flourish, Convoke the Spirits, and Cenarian Guidance here. But instead of taking Germination and Reforestation, we're going to shift over and get Undergrowth and Photosynthesis. We're also dropping Power of the Arc Druid because we don't need to have extra regrowths on anybody. There's just not enough people for it to matter. So these two talents, very, very huge, very good. I almost went into these talents, they're the best talents, huge talents right here. These ones the best. Anyway, they're very good because Photosynthesis is going to put all of your life blooms will make all of your other hots heal faster, and I'll demonstrate that when you go into the rotation, but it's super, super useful, so make sure you keep that. All right, so going into the actual rotation here, well, before we get to that, let's talk about the stat balance. Your biggest stat is going to be haste. Haste, haste, haste. After that, you can kind of just balance things out between crit and mastery. Really, whatever gear you get is what you're going to end up with. Always try to go with the highest item level, but haste is a huge buff for all of your spells, so try to get that because it will help you out the most. That being said, let's talk about the rotation finally. So I am still using Healbot. I like it. It's what I use. Don't judge me. But basically what you want to do is, number one, always keep Life Bloom up on yourself and generally the tank, but sometimes if you're in certain situations, like say last boss of Temple of the Jade Serpent, you'll have that boss put 2 dots on people. So you'll, dispel one of the dots and then you can put Life Bloom on the person that you need to continue healing because that will help you keep them alive. But just looking at, say, this heal right here, with Life Bloom on them, it's doing 1283 every 0.8 seconds. If you put Life Bloom on yourself, that increases to 1718 every 0.6 seconds. So as you can see, keeping Life Bloom up on yourself is critical to healing everybody else. We can even look and see the difference that Rejuvenation makes, or that it makes on Rejuvenation. So 2886 with every 2.3 seconds if I don't have Life Bloom up. If I do have Life Bloom up, it goes to 3373 every 1.9 seconds. That's a huge difference. It's absolutely critical to make sure you have Life Bloom up on yourself to make your heals good and worth it. So keep Life Bloom rolling on yourself just all the time. If you can't keep it up on yourself or on the tank, that's fine. At least keep it up on yourself to make sure you're giving all of your hots the best chance they have to keep everybody alive. The next thing is not too much different, is keep that Fluorescence going on, just throw that on the ground wherever the majority of your group is. People tend to know to stand in it these days, so really just throw it on the ground where the group is fighting stuff and they will get healed from it. It will also buff your next critical growth or your next wild growth if you've got the 4-piece talent set, so useful to have that as well. Other than that, throw Adaptive Swarm out pretty much all the time on cooldown. That should be like the second thing you do, or the third thing you do. So Life Blooms, if I had to put it in like order of priority, it's Life Blooms, Fluorescence, and then Adaptive Swarm. Adaptive Swarm, as you can see, starts on one target, will heal, a friendly target, and then it'll jump to either hostile targets or other friendly targets and heal whoever happens to be there. And if I put, one here, and that one's already over there, this is going to jump back and go preferably to somebody else, like it did there, and it continues healing. Also, buffed by Life Bloom. So again, keep the Life Bloom up. But yeah, just keep using Adaptive Swarm whenever you got it going, because it's just going to bounce around and do healing for free on everybody. So very useful to have going. So after that, whenever you need to quickly spot heal somebody, throw Rejuvenation on them. If somebody's taking a lot of damage, need a lot of spot healing, or if the group's taking a lot of damage, you can sacrifice the Rejuvenation and then throw out a Wild Growth, and that's going to do a lot of healing as well. Use your Nature's Vigil basically whenever you can. It's a very powerful DPS boost. So just keep, just from turning Nature's Vigil up, I'm doing something like 25k. Am I doing any other damage really? So, 35k? Wow, that's a lot. But anyway, just make sure you're using all these abilities you have, because they're going to do a lot for you. So that's pretty much it for healing. The only other thing worth mentioning is more or less your big cooldowns. So if you know that there's going to be a lot of damage coming on something and you have time to stand still, Tranquility is a good skill to be able to use. You'll be able to heal pretty much everything in the area, and you can follow that up with a Nature Swiftness and Convoke, and then once that's done, go ahead and throw out a Flourish, and then you'll keep everything alive pretty much forever, and nothing will ever die once you have those things rolling. So very useful abilities, not much different. Like I talked about in the previous video, the reason you use Nature Swiftness is because anytime Regrowth gets cast during your Convoke the Spirits cast, it's going to buff it by giving it 100% more healing. So that is very huge. The other thing is, when you have these free casts of Regrowth available, go ahead and use them on anybody other than the people that have Life Bloom. Because as you can see, when I cast my Regrowth, because I had Life Bloom on myself and the tank, we both got a stack of the Regrowth buff, or Regrowth hot. So very big thing to do is just keep putting Life Bloom up on people, and then use your free Regrowth casts on any of the other 3 people that you can use it on, because then you'll get 3 Regrowth hots rather than just 2. So, that's pretty much it. That being said though, don't be afraid to use Regrowth on the tank if the tank is about to die from something stupid, or if somebody else is about to die from something as stupid. So that pretty much covers all that. If you want to talk about defensives, Iron Bark for the tank is, or anybody else that's being focused down by stuff, is always helpful. You can just throw Iron Bark on the tank to give them a higher chance of survival. Something like, again, Temple of the Jade Serpent. When you see the third boss using Jade Serpent Strike, or Jade Strike, whatever the hell it's called, that puts a huge healing debuff on them that needs to be healed out, plus they take a lot of damage. So if you throw Iron Bark on them, it will help them to survive that. I would typically wait until the second one, just because usually the tanks know enough not to try to use their cooldowns on the second one. They'll generally use their cooldowns on the first one. So that pretty much covers that. Of course, keep your Mark of the Wild up as well, because that just gives everybody a buff, and usually people will complain if you don't do it anyway. Alright, so we're finally, last thing, I promise. Don't forget that you have Renewal. You always keep it on your bar in an easy to reach spot, because Renewal is a very quick heal yourself for 1/3 of your health. So there's really no reason not to use it. It's only a 1.5 minute cooldown. It's pretty quick and it's free. So just use it. That's very similar also, by the way, to the subscribe button. You can click that and that's free, and it doesn't cost you anything, and it will help me out. So go ahead and use that now if you don't mind. But that aside, let's get to the DPS portion of things. So in addition to having to heal everybody and keep them alive, if you do those things I just showed you, as long as your gear is decent, you'll be able to keep everybody alive. The main thing that you need to focus on, though, is doing some extra damage whenever you possibly can. So, number one, make sure that you're able to, throw out something like a stampeding roar or an incapacitating roar whenever, you know that big casts are coming that are going to do damage to everybody. Good examples are Azure Vaults, where you have the plants that cast their big AoE and it puts a dot on everybody. You can interrupt those and it doesn't look like somebody's going to be able to interrupt it. Court of Stars is a great place to use it when you get to the imps, or really anytime things are casting like the frontal cleave that the guards do. It's just a great way to quickly interrupt everything around you without causing you to really lose any of your uptime on anything else. Now, as far as the damage goes, the basic thing you're going to want to start off with is just throw out like a Sunfire. Then you can shift over into cat form, use Thrash a couple times just to do some damage. You also have Swipe available to you. Swipe will do more damage and use less of your energy while you're doing it. And then when you need to get out of the the healing or the damage roll, then just throw another Sunfire up to get yourself back out into normal so that you can go back to your normal bars and continue casting your heals as you were. To keep like your life bloom up. Another thing that I like to do is, for example, I'll go into cat form when the tank's rolling up on something, and I'll just hit them with Rake down here. Rake does great because it will stun them initially, giving everybody a little bit of time to do damage, puts a bleed on them, also causes things to take more damage, and then from there continue with the Thrash as well as the Swipe. Always try to get at least one Thrash going, just so that you have a dot going on the mobs. Really everything to do with Resto Druids, whether it's damage or healing, a lot of it revolves around just managing your hots and your dots. All the overtime stuff. So throwing up a Thrash and then do a couple swipes and then pop out by using a Sunfire, and that will do plenty of damage just to keep things going and help out your group. And that's pretty much all there is to it. I didn't really mention the Cenarian Ward, but you can throw that on the tanks or DPS as well. Just basically gives you a little bit of a shield in case something hits you. You'll immediately they'll immediately get another hot on them, so it's just useful to have. And that's pretty much it. I don't think there's a whole lot else. If anybody's got any questions and think I missed anything, please put that in the comments and I'll see if I can cover it. And until the next time, try not to die.